Detroit's me. We're bringing it back. Mate Watts is here. Why? Because this game's awesome.
It's worth it.
It's well good. And what a better reason to bring it back.
We literally sat there talking about it today. Like, we sat here for about 20 minutes just gassing. We thought, you know what, we should do a video on this.
We should do a video on this. I apologise for this t-shirt. I didn't expect to be on camera.
Dad on duty. Action man.
Let's talk about the game. David Cage, am I right?
7-star man, you mate.
Select character.
You lied to me.
My name is Connor. This is our story.
David Cage, mate. Everybody hates David Cage.
Why?
I don't know. Like, it's whether or not you're into this guy's games or not. I think that's it. Like, because they're a bit pretentious. Let's put it that way. Sometimes they can be a bit on your nose.
Right.
But they've only. We're looking at Detroit. Become Human. Become Human.
We've followed this for such a long time.
As soon as we saw the trailer at E3, as soon as we saw who we found out to be Connor, our boy Connor, standing on that rooftop, and it showed all the different variations of how one scene in this game could play out, we were like, this is my jam. Like, I can dig really hard, complex games. Like, we finished Cuphead again the same week this game came out.
Yep.
But I also really appreciate good storytelling and good storytelling video games. I think that's where it separates it from movies, is that you can make choices that suit how you feel about the characters rather than the story just being told to you.
That's kind of why I took a back seat, because apart from A Way Out, the only other interactive story-based games that I've played are usually Telltale ones, whereas sometimes they're a good story, but they're so gimmicky and everything. They throw everything into the story. There's just no variance, and the decisions you make are very arbitrary as well.
Yeah, classically.
So
I mean, even Until
off.
Dawn suffers from this, although it's shoved down this butterfly effect down your throat, especially for the first 30 minutes. Until Dawn was constantly like, every decision you make matters. It's like, well, really, it doesn't, actually.
Yeah.
You have one story, and basically it's like some people can die along the way, but the story isn't going to deviate. It's going to stick to its path, and then it's like, oh, at the end I had 2 people alive, or you had 8 people alive. And with Telltale, it's generally a similar kind of thing, unless there's like 2 or 3 endings or something like that. But the overall 8 or 9 hours of gameplay still takes you to this end point where it might have a slight twist at the end. And that's not really choose your own adventure type stuff.
It is not.
It's not, no. Like, maybe you'll lose somebody and you lose a couple of conversations or something. But this is the fifth game from Quantic Dreams. So these are guys from Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and this time they were... I know there's a lot of skepticism coming into this, but like you said, we both saw this trailer and we were super, super hype about it, and it's finally here. And between us, between everybody in the office, we've done 4 playthroughs of this. I've done 2, you've done 1, you just got back from vacation. I was like, play it, you're on. Especially from our stream audience who are like, you've got to get Andy to play this. And also playing one with my wife. And she's already deviated massively from any other playthrough I've seen, because so far every playthrough I've seen has been totally different, which is great.
That's what I can't praise enough in this, is the fact that after we finish each chapter, like, you obviously played it and you said to me, what ending did you get? You get like a breakdown sort of passage of directions that you could take after every chapter, so you can see where it deviates, what ending you can possibly get from said deviation and stuff. But every time, I mean, they're not revealed to you until you do them either.
No, what it generally do, they give you this flow chart of the story of each individual chapter, and in there it'll tell you where you deviate. What decision did you make that changed the outcome? But then you know, okay, so I have to, maybe if I do something different, but some of them are even blanked out, like, how did I get this bit? How would this have happened? What's going on there that could have caused this outcome? And what you get here is a game with massive replayability, which is exactly what you want from a choose your own adventure story. I want to go back through it and I want to play things out differently.
And it's not just jumping back into the game for, let's say, collectibles and things. It's things that they genuinely massively alter all outcomes of the game.
Yeah, let's break down the story for the guys then. So we have basically 2 stories told from 3 different perspectives.
Yep.
So we have one story, which is the story of Kara and Alice. It is set in Detroit. It's near futurish. It's 2038. 1988 is when they set it. Androids have, they're basically, it's the rejuvenation of Detroit, because Detroit's not in the best place right now in the real world.
Yep.
But the company CyberLife has developed how to make androids properly and make them good, realistic, functional, and all that kind of stuff. Now, they have prospered. Detroit city center, and it shows this in the intro cutscene, is prospering, absolutely making hand over fist so much money. But the problem is it's also caused like a 45% unemployment rate, because the androids are everywhere.
Yep.
And they have taken over all the menial tasks, and it's very good about showing you where androids have taken over, from babysitting to looking after people who are elderly or disabled. All the androids do that. All the laborious work, so if they're digging tunnels or anything like that, androids are doing that stuff.
And this is all human implementation as well at this point. It's not like the androids at this point are taking over.
They're just machines.
They're machines that are implemented
machines
by humans, which is obviously causing the unemployment as well.
Yeah, and it shows the price differences in them as well, which I thought was really interesting. So there's like household, care, like just basically housework guys. Androids, they're like $800, which is like slightly more expensive than the original PS3. You're right. I mean, that was like a $500 console. So yeah, people are having access to these machines in their homes, whether they're rich or not, and up to the more expensive ones, which run like $8,000, that are doing all sorts of extra stuff. We know the military is mass using them. There's lots of mention of military droids, and basically the droids are. It's kind of, you've got to think them, they are base machines, because that's the base of the game, is they are just programmed to do their function, but they are everywhere in society. But at the same time, it's very clearly shown that they are a separate section of society, because they do odd jobs for you.
Yep.
Like, they'll go and do your shopping for you. They'll do all that. So they have back of the bus stuff. It's very on your nose. It is a bit David Cage in terms of race relations. You know, androids have to sit at the back of the bus. They're very poorly mistreated by the people who've lost their jobs, because half the country is out of money, is out of jobs. They're very badly treated, but they are just machines. That's how people look at them. They're toasters, right? They're walking toasters that are doing that. It's cool, because if you throughout the game there are magazines, and one of the big ones is Canada has refused androids.
Yeah.
And there are other countries doing this. They're refusing to do it because, yes, it brings the wealthy a lot of money, and it can make you prosper, but it's kind of going to kill your economy, because you're going to put everybody out of a job if you accept androids. So there are countries that have refused, and Canada is the closest one to the US, that has refused android infiltration. I don't know if you read this, but the other countries have tried to create androids, but they've done them in their own way. So like Russia's got androids, but they've not been able to make them as sleek and aesthetically pleasing. They're far more industrial based. But that's give them advantages as well. They're the ones that are doing like space travel and can survive underwater longer, because they're far more industrial androids.
Oh, I didn't read those.
Yeah, it's very cool. And China's got them as well, which are, again, they're not aesthetically pleasing like the ones in the US, but they work for like months and months and months and months non-stop. Like, they don't have to stop for anything. They're pure efficiency is how they're working there. So we have Kara and Alice. Kara is a housework bot. Alice is the daughter of Todd.
Do you think Todd's had friends?
Not the, it's wonderful. I think we should talk about the initial scenes that introduce these characters, because it makes no difference to your gameplay at all. The opening for Kara is fantastic, because you feel like a puppy in a pet shop, don't you think?
Absolutely, yeah.
You awaken in a shop on a pedestal, and you can't walk, you can just move your head. And this is before you know you're one female android, or that you're called Kara, or anything like that. You're just looking through the eyes of Kara, and you're kind of seeing all these people shopping for androids, and you're looking, and we compared it to like when you're on a plane and you've got one seat next to you, and you're like, who's gonna pick? Who's gonna pick me? You're like looking for the most ideal person to choose who you would like to go home with. Who's gonna buy me today? And you're kind of like looking at people like, you buy me, you buy me. Todd isn't your first pick. Do you agree, Andy?
No. I think out of everyone in the shop, I didn't want that man to walk towards us. But
Yeah,
he did already own us. We weren't there to be bought. We were
turns out
there.
we've been in for repair.
Yeah, we'd been repaired.
Yeah, we have been repaired. And that's where it kind of shows you the effects of the androids, because it starts, obviously the shop's in the center of Detroit. So as the cutscene plays out, you're in the luxury and the splendor of central Detroit. And then gradually you go to the suburbs, and it gets worse and worse and worse, until you eventually arrive at Todd's house, and you're like, oh no, this really sucks. And you're his housework android. You're there to also look after his daughter, and he doesn't give two rat's asses about his daughter. Poor little Alice. And Kara's story plays out from there, with this story of Kara and Alice, and how, more importantly, how the world changing stuff, which happens in the other stories, affects them because they're kind of separate from the other storyline, but they're affected by what the other storylines are doing.
But yeah, and almost like how much they've changed as well, because we saw that Kara had been in repair for 2 weeks. He'd not done a single bit of cleaning in the house for 2 weeks. So when we got home, the first thing we do is we have to clean his house, and then there's washing on the line from when we were taken into repair. So we have to go and take that off the line and rewash it. And
completely incapable of looking after himself. Again, unemployed because of androids gets brought up, and there's a lot of other things that develop about Todd's character that almost make him a sympathetic character once if you find out the whole backstory of him. But again, it's a very intense, scary, ominous feeling. I love how the opening scene plays out, because I've heard a lot of people give a lot of shit to that scene because it's, you're doing housework. What is this? This is not a game. But it actually serves so many purposes. One is you arrive at this house and you're already feeling like maybe you're a sex bot, which I think most people feel when you see someone who looks kind of seedy and dirty picking up this beautiful girl. Androids, like, this is going to be an abusive thing, right? I mean, this guy's just going to be trying to have sex with me all the time, and it feels very uncomfortable. And also, when you get to the house, the first prompt you get is to look at the bus that's leaving, like Kara has an instinct to get the fuck away.
yeah,
And then you go in and it kind of gets worse and worse and worse from there. And even though you are doing the chores, which is what he makes you do, because you're actually playing the orders of your master. That's how you have to look at it. It's not a case of an RPG giving you a quest list. It's like, this is what you've been told to do, and you are a machine. That's what you're supposed to be doing. The other stories that you get to play both the characters are Markus and Connor. What do you think of either of those?
Connor was best.
Who's Connor? What's he about?
Connor is the guy that we've seen. You probably, if you've not played the game, you've seen the trailers. He's a hostage negotiator detective. We also find out that he costs a lot of money, he's state of the art, and he's primarily there for hostage negotiation. But then obviously, as it pans out and then we start to actually do police work as well, Connor's a little different from the rest, which I'm not going to say why. I didn't notice this, by the way, until the end of the game.
How did you know?
I didn't notice it at the end of the game. Obviously, one of the things in the game which also alters your outcome is what people's feelings are towards you. And obviously different people have different personalities, including humans and androids, and they unlock or lock certain directions that you can go with your story. But Connor's got an additional thing there, which I didn't, like I say, I'm not going to say, but I didn't notice it until later. But I like Connor. It's the thing with Connor is he seems very sterile.
He's a completely blank canvas,
yes,
is what Connor is, and that's his story arc. He's a completely blank canvas, and you can take Connor in any direction you want to go with him, which is, again, what you're after in these type of games. It's like, this is the character, what do I feel about this character? What direction do I want to take this character in?
Yeah.
And that will pay off in spades, because you will get the result you're after by playing him in certain ways. The other character is Markus, and Markus's introduction is...
It was so good.
It's good. It's gorgeous as well, because he starts off in the city.
Yeah.
He's off to do some odd jobs for somebody. He's just there to pick up paints. And it's so wonderfully done, I think, as well. And credit again to David Cage for doing this, because before that we get Kara's terrifying, ominous presence at this horrible house. She's obviously been in for repair, and maybe she's a sex bot and all this, and you're definitely thinking those things. It then switches completely to this beautiful, lovely environment that Markus lives in, a completely opposite side of the situation. Markus isn't in a scary situation at all. He's actually very well looked after.
He's happy.
He's happy, and he's cared for, and he has respect from the human who owns him, our boy Carl, played by Lance Henriksen. They're like, the sheer quantity of stars they got for this game is crazy. But he's also getting roughed up by the unemployed in the street. Like, they're beating him down. And you end up finding out you care for this disabled, wealthy artist in a mansion, essentially, who wants you to explore yourself, who wants to find more inside you, and you have a very happy home. And it's immediately after the Kara section. It's like this horrible section, and it's like, well, this isn't... It's trying to show you how the androids live. They all live differently. And then you switch over to this pure palace of luxury and freedom that Markus enjoys, and then he enjoys... Markus and Connor's stories kind of run concurrently to each other. Each one affects each other, and you're kind of chasing each other's tail because they're doing world-changing things.
Yep.
Which then brings us to the main point of the story. And yeah, we have spent a long time on the story section, but this is a story-based game. Is deviancy. And that is the whole point of the game, is the idea that some of the androids are having a malfunction, which is what it's described in the game, that's making them simulate human emotions. And once that happens, they're going off book, man. They're wild cards. They'll do anything they want to do. They're rage, angry, murder, lust, love, care. They start having these proper feelings, and the deviants are a problem because obviously some of the deviants have started to commit crimes, especially the ones who are being abused. If you were beating the shit out of your android for giggles, at some point they've snapped and they've become deviant androids, and then maybe they've just fucking stabbed the shit out of you. And that's when the coppers are coming in, and why they're bringing in android coppers like Connor to deal with this situation. But the interplay through all the characters through there, Connor's partner, our boy Hank, played by Clancy Brown.
Put your hand on that wall.
Put your hand on that wall.
Put your hand on that wall!
And later characters that come into it really give you care about them. And I think that's so important. You care about them because of this, because of the way they're played. The gameplay, it's QuickTime based, which is the way these games work. So I didn't go in being surprised by that.
No, me neither.
No, like if you're going to be choosing your own adventure, it's unlikely to involve a gun and FPS Twitch-based combat. That's not to say it's not fast though. I think the quick times are fast, really fast, and they matter a lot.
Oh God, do they matter?
They do matter. I noticed, and I think you noticed as well, is especially in the latter half of the game, the choices you make in how you tackle each situation get faster and faster.
Yeah.
So you don't have time to you can pause the game and have a little think, but you're so engrossed in what's going on that
you
you're
just
like,
let it happen.
Yeah, you've got to click fast, and have you unlocked new pathways of conversations and feelings that you can have with people? Did you want to be friends with your partner, enemies with your partner? Are you neutral with your partner? How's that going to play out? But the combat quick time events, one thing, they're super fast, but they do give you some leeway, which I thought was really nice. Like if you miss a couple, it's not like Until Dawn. If you missed one, that was probably that character dead. Right, and sometimes because it gives you quite an intense combination of quick times, so sometimes you'll be shaking the pad, sometimes you'll have to rub the touchpad on the PS4. Mash the button was always what caught me out, because sometimes it's hold the button down, sometimes it's mash the button.
Yeah.
That sometimes just caught me out. I was like, I thought it was push down, or I thought it was mash, or something like that. But they do give you some leeway. You might take some extra damage or something like that, or maybe and it does play out correctly. If you miss a quick time, you will get punched in the face.
Yep.
If you don't miss it, then you'll hit back, and all those scenarios play out fluidly, which I thought was really cool. But snap decisions is what it's all about. I think the big gameplay we're going to talk about is just the variation in how crazy this plays out.
It's so massively intertwined. Like, the decisions, like, just to give you an example, the decisions that you make affecting things, like I was talking earlier, is because obviously I played my playthrough after Mike played his playthrough, so I could see the deviancies in the flowchart of where I went, or what I picked and what Mike picked. And I can see where that track deviates, but I can also... Like, if something happened in Chapter 2 where someone, let's just give an example, someone died in Mike's and someone lived in mine, in Chapter 20, that will then change the options and the outcome of what happens because someone died or because someone survived. It will also change the cinematics in the actual game as well. It's not just like an arbitrary choice. You'll see the same cutscene. It's a custom cutscene for every single different variancy of the storyline.
It is. It's to say that I've seen the ending now a few times, and to say the ending doesn't do it justice. Like, the characters are depending on what you did throughout that game, the characters are in entirely different locations.
Yep.
It's not like you all end up in the same place and things slightly go awry. That's not doing this justice. You might go to an almost different part of the city with that character at exactly the same point as you did, and they might never do anything that was similar to what happened elsewhere. And he said another brief example of this, because I can't do the variations justice enough, and it's hard to show off without spoiling what happened in our playthroughs. But I did an arbitrary choice in probably Chapter 5 that I kind of did for a giggle on my second playthrough, because we streamed this, and so our chat was like, why don't we try and do this time? Okay. And that decision affected the very last prompt of the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the very last prompt of the game. And I was like, I cannot believe something I cared so little about, that we did for a bit of a giggle, I'm 7 or 8 hours later in the game, and that came back and was like, that was actually quite important. Or a character we met in the first half an hour. And we both said this, and this is testament to how much you care about these characters. We both, once we thought a character was gone, we were both begging and pleading, I hope we get to see that character again. Because that character is so awesome, even though we only maybe spent 7 or 8 minutes with it. It's like, I just really hope. And you're waiting, like, does this pay off, does it not? And in nearly all cases, it does pay off.
Yeah.
So not enough praise can be lavished on this game, but let's talk about the pros then. Obviously, the story development immersion. This is one of the most ideal choose-your-own-adventure type games I've ever played. I've very rarely cared enough about not only 1 or 2 characters in the game, but cared about like 8 or 9.
I was just going to say though, but making you care about those characters as well, each individual one with literally at the start of the game with nothing in common, but to actually get you invested in the characters early on, it's a hard box to check, but they did it.
Yeah, it's testament to the actors, because there's lots of videos on YouTube now of them making the game, and instead of like trying to piece them together and just put it together, they had all these professional star quality actors in a room for days on end filming and together every single scene. Similar to how they did with God of War. The best way of doing this is to put these actors in a room and make them act out the scene properly. And then we'll duplicate their actions and do all that kind of stuff. And it's well worth a watch to see how they put this together. And the immersion factor, you were engrossed. You were absolutely engrossed. Like, you care. If somebody might die, you really care. You're like, no. Or when something pays off and you feel like you did it correctly, you really like enjoy this story. The cons, I think the obvious one for me, the main con, is the controls of moving the characters around is jank. Like, it's really bad in a lot of places. Like spinning on the spot.
Do you know what I hate?
Bumping into people.
It's not just this game particularly, but it's in games that are like this. Is if you see something that you have to walk up to interact with, if you don't get that prompt straight away to interact with it and you're stood on top of it, you have to move away to come back to re-initialize the prompt for you to activate it to do it.
100%.
It suffered a lot from this.
Yeah, exactly, because you need to be looking at it in a reasonable arc. I wouldn't say it was constrictive by any means, but you kind of have to have a good 45-degree view of what you need to interact with in order to get the interaction going. And sometimes you will walk past something and then the prompt will appear, but obviously you've moved out of that arc, so you want to turn back to it because it's like, oh, I can interact with something there, and then you kind of like get stuck sometimes. We had one on my first playthrough, one of the characters actually boxed me in against a wall, and we had to restart the chapter because we literally couldn't move.
It wasn't moving either.
Yeah, we were just completely stuck, and the character didn't have the wherewithal to say that the player is pushing against me, maybe I should walk. The AI didn't pick up on that. He just stood completely still.
Yes.
And that's it. I was trapped against the wall. I was like, ugh. But that is the only time it happened. And luckily, the chapters the later ones are certainly much longer, but most of them run about 10 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It certainly did not set me back to the point of like, this is really annoying to replay or anything along those lines. But the movement, I think, really let it down. And I have seen from a perspective when my wife is a non-gamer, but she wanted to play it, from somebody who's not au fait with twin stick controls, like because it's a story-based game, you might want your partner to play with you. That's exactly what I did. It looks super frustrating from their point of view. Like, if it's fine, if we're struggling and we do this every single day, you can imagine somebody who doesn't play a lot of games and you're like, this is a story-based game, it's not that bad, it's just quick time stuff, you just got to hold buttons down, it's not that bad. When you see them actually trying to control the game, it's actually looks frustrating.
Next level for this as well though, because you've got the directions of the thumbsticks, you've also got your 4 buttons on the main pad, you've got your 4 shoulder buttons, you've also got your gyro in the pad.
And the touchpad.
And the touchpad as well, making you move it left, move it right, swipe left, swipe right, up, down, left, right. So there's a lot of things to put in a QTE, and later on in the game as well, where your character investments at like critical mass, if you make those wrong decisions, then it could have some dire effects for those characters.
Yeah, it could. I don't think the quick times, I don't think I would also say it's a really niggly point, but I think it's correct because it's what my wife pointed out, and I think, you know what, you're right. I don't think the interact options needed to be as needless as they were, because some of them are just point the stick up, right? You do it all with the right stick generally to interact, but some of them are point the stick up and then circle it around, go down and then circle it up to another way. It's needless to have it like that for me, because I could see sometimes she's doing that because that right stick also controls the camera, so if she didn't get the initial thing correct, Suddenly the character's head's pointing up, and now she needs to bring it back down, then reinitialize the interact option. Instead of it just being X, Y, Z, you know, X square triangle or R2, R1, something like that would have been better than having like swooshes. But I get the idea, like you'd use the touchpad if you're using a tablet in the game, because that's what you would do IRL. I get that they're trying to immerse you into it. So if you're opening, say, I don't know the name of them, but the doors on ships that have the big wheels on, you actually tilt the pad in the direction to open it. So you use the gyro to do that. I get you're trying to immerse me into it, but sometimes it's like, this doesn't need to be like this, right? I don't need to simulate turning a door handle.
If it's in that situation, I didn't mind that. It's when they incorporate those actions on top of an already pretty tense quick time event.
Yeah, so you could have something like, I guess in some ways it adds to the tension, right? Because it'll go move the stick right, move it down, triangle, L2, mash square, and you're gonna make mistakes, which adds to the tension. Like I'm pretty sure it's intentional that you're supposed to make mistakes, because like I say, they have cinematically played out you making those mistakes. Wherever you make them, it does play out like that, or it could have dire consequences to it. But it does feel frustrating, because it's like, you go X, Y, X triangle, that's not too bad. And then suddenly it's like, shake the pad. Now suddenly you've got to use the thumb pad, and you're like, you know, your hands get like annoyed by it.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only con to it. It's just, I would say for an experienced gamer, it's not that bad at all. And it's not an issue. You'll be fine with it. If I saw the frustration, not from myself, but I saw it in my wife, if it's somebody like, oh, this is a story-based game, let's do a playthrough of this game. You can see them getting frustrated. But other than that, amazing game.
Really good game.
So good. Check it out. It's well worth a PS4, considering the library the PS4 has now.
Oh yeah.
We'll have for the next few years. Thanks, guys. See you again. Peace.
5.1 now.
7-star, man. 9-star game. Mocking my shirt. You can leave it alone. What a game!
It was really good.
I can't believe your ending. Like, I was sad and mad all at the same time.
Why?
Because I think with any of these kind of games, if you watch somebody else play them, it's not a problem when I'm playing it, but if you watch someone else, you're like, don't make that choice. Don't do that. And then you see that highlight go up, like, you press that choice and you're like, I would not have done that. And then something bad happens and you're like, you moron! Of course that was going to happen.
Do you know what? That worked plus and minus in my favour. One of them, I made a decision that made chat go ape shit.
Yes.
And it came into a really good output that only 4% of the global player base got.
Yeah, you can see the world stats. We didn't mention that in the review, but you can see the world stats of what everybody else has done, which is super fun. But yeah, it's one of those that sometimes it works out and you wanted that result, and sometimes it's like, oh, God, I can't believe this is happening. And you regret your decisions.
Big
I
time.
did on our second playthrough where we were sciencing things. Because obviously we'd done one, so I went for like, well, let's play the characters a little different this time and see what happens, like you would do on a replay. And it was like, no, I don't want this. This isn't the world I asked for.
Well, that knock-on effect as well sticks with you for the rest of the game.
It does, yeah. It's very meme heavy, so like you'll remember things like the fish.
6.1, mate.
6.1 in the fish. 6.1 in the fish. So you can check out our playthroughs, of which we've done 3 recorded playthroughs of this game. You can see them down below. Other than that, you can check out the previous Mates Watson. We'll be doing some more, because we've played some awesome games recently and not done any videos. Like A Way Out. If you've got a PC and you like co-op, play A Way Out with a friend.
Or if you work for Telltale Games, watch it.
It's not going to work anymore, dude. See you, everybody. Bye-bye.